We're very privileged to have Pete and Matt joining us today. Matt Barnett is the Business Director for Carrot Enterprise. He looks slightly different from his photo there. He lost the beard a few weeks ago now. And Pete Hitchens is the lead for Insights at IBM. And we're going to talk a bit about data, insights and content marketing and how we can use that going forward. But something that we like to do when we're, every time we introduce someone new at LinkedIn is we like to ask them something that's not on their LinkedIn profile. I'll go ahead actually, because something that's not on my LinkedIn profile is I just got a promotion. Thanks, Matt. It's not really official, but it is official, I guess, now. Yeah, first anyone's heard about it, but thank you. Yeah, so I was promoted from New South Wales sales manager to Australian sales manager, but I'll take it. And that's valid, right? HR being informed as we speak. Cool. Awesome. So, Pete, we'll kick it off with you. What's something that's not on your LinkedIn profile?
Well, I was actually, now you sort of said it, thinking, and I've just about chucked everything I can onto the profile. So I can't think what's missing apart from, favourite colour and star sign, which is green and Taurus. So apart from that, I think it's just sort of details about what I did at college. And quite frankly, it was quite fuzzy then. So I can't, that's about what's missing.
And a son that likes to catch deadly spiders with chopsticks at the moment.
That's right. That's. I'll share that story with anybody afterwards.
And Pete, you lead Insights for IBM. Do you want to expand a bit about your role and what you do?
Sure. So my title is Market Development and Insights. This is sort of a role which has evolved from a few years ago for IBM, which was just market intelligence, and that was curating. Harvesting as much insight about clients, who the clients are, what the clients are buying, what do the clients want to buy, how are they buying, how do they want to buy. So all of those insights is still a key function of what market development insights do, but most importantly, the market development portion or part of that equation is critically important for IBM now, because it's the so what. So you have this insight, you have this intelligence, so what do you do with it? So market development insights works very closely with the marketing team, obviously in context of relevance of what IBM says to our clients, but we also work very closely internally with the operations team, the strategy team, with the sellers directly, with HR, and with finance. So we're spread about using that insight and creating change consistently and continually. Getting in the information, what does it mean? What do we have to change to sort of be appropriately aligned to the customer and to the market?
Awesome. You can see why I got him to introduce himself rather than me go through it.
I can't fit that all on one card.
Yeah. It's a big card. And Matt, moving on to you, what's something that's not on your LinkedIn profile?
Probably the biggest thing for me at the moment is the fact my wife's pregnant, so I'm going to be a dad in March. That's really what my life revolves around, and I'm getting ready for that. Yeah.
Matt, and you've got also a bit of a unique position in that you, the company that you work for, you actually work across two different divisions, so you're wearing two hats simultaneously, very talented man. Do you want to explain a bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a business director for Cara, for people that probably everyone knows who IBM is, but Cara is a global media agency. We're part of the Dentsu Aegis network, which is a network of 30 different agencies here in Australia. I run Carrot Enterprise, which is the B2B division, and we specialize in technology and finance. So my role there is to ensure that our service levels are where they should be for our clients, to drive the innovation that they expect, but then second to that, also new business, so to grow the business here in ANZ. Yeah. I'm also part of the Empowering Media team, which is a group of specialists within the Dentsu Aegis network that service Microsoft. So I work with Microsoft across their commercial and their SMB campaigns. Yeah.
Awesome. Pete, you have used LinkedIn quite a bit at IBM to get insights around various things. Can you talk a bit about how you leverage those insights and what exactly you did just with us recently?
Yeah, I'm sort of very sort of proud of the fact that we've been working and partnering closely with LinkedIn for quite a while, at least a couple of years, and it's really what's been a catalyst for IBM having this relationship with LinkedIn is the change that we've all experiencing in the technology market. You know, the way technology is being consumed, the whole consumption trend. So very early in 2013, on the back of tech trends events and campaigns that we had around the time, we were working with LinkedIn to create and design a vehicle to harvest in some key questions that were really sort of playing for us. I mean, we were finding sort of coming into the end of 2012 that the dynamic with the clients was changing slightly in terms of the engagement. There were more stakeholders being involved than we traditionally had seen, like the IT departments. And we were starting to sort of get that sense of shifting involvement in the market. And so it was important for us to sort of get a snapshot. Typically and traditionally, IBM have used other organizations, and they've done phone research and they've done face-to-face research, which takes often 2, maybe 3 months to conduct. And often, as we know, our market sort of is accelerating in terms of pace of change. So it was an opportunity for us to look at working with LinkedIn, not only just from the campaign standpoint, but also to say, well, let's look at the structure of the LinkedIn audience. And even now, and correct me if I've got these numbers wrong, but you know, the membership size is about 6 million for Australia. Of that, there's about 1.5 million which are C-suite, and about 2.7 million which are line of business. I mean, these are compelling numbers in terms of statistical relevance and representation of our market. You know, these are executive level business leaders, and it was certainly an opportunity that we looked at to work with LinkedIn to say, well, we've got to tap into this, we've got to understand, and we did a very successful project engagement with the LinkedIn team, and it struck us on a lot of levels. Probably the most impactful piece of work that we did last year, but it sort of answered a few questions in terms of, well, one, because it was directed at the IT community, it sort of validated that it wasn't technology per se that the market was buying. It was industry-specific content, industry-specific insight and selling was much more relevant to the organisation. And what was also interesting when we were going into this research about, you know, just how important cloud, analytics, mobility, social, security, I mean, how important these were and how much they were on top of mind of all C-suite and IT buyers at the time. And then the last part of it was it gave us great insight into, you know, who was top of mind for the clients. And it wasn't the traditional IT vendors. It was these new players. It was Amazon, you know, it was Google. It was just all of a sudden it sort of helped sort of paint that canvas as to who was involved with this change and why was it changing and what was happening with the client. So for us, it was critically important, and as Matt and Kelly, you know, showed a lot of statistics and data earlier on. All of that absolutely is, you know, that piece of research then triggered a whole series of, you know, it was Pandora's box. A whole other series of questions came out. But what was really critically important for us in these findings was that clients weren't buying technology for technology's sake. Clients were now buying a business outcome. And technology vendors had to sell an outcome, something accountable. It could be productivity, it could be customer satisfaction, it could be revenue growth, whatever it may be. But that piece of work that we did with LinkedIn certainly triggered a whole tsunami of demand for insight, and it really has changed an awful lot within the organisation.
And with regard to getting, you know, understanding that people are buying those business outcomes, you know, how did you use those insights to then create or drive the marketing strategy specifically around, you know, content marketing?
Well, again, it sort of all came down to this word industry. I mean, it certainly changed how we've sort of viewed the market in terms of we have the technology, we have the brands, we have offerings. But in context of a specific industry, what does this mean? So what does it mean for a bank? What does it mean to a retailer? What does it mean for a mining organization in the Pilbara? So it contextualized everything, and it really sort of drove a compelling story for us internally, that we had to view this from an industry standpoint. We had to view this from an outcome for the client. So it has actually sort of been a very powerful piece.
Awesome. And Matt, we saw Matt presented, and we've seen it a bunch of times around how buyers are typically 60% of the way through the purchase decision-making process before they, reach out to a vendor. How have you seen that sort of affect, the marketing mix and with regard to your clients? So
I think content marketing first, it's not really anything new, especially in B2B. If you talk to my consumer colleagues at Cara, it's a bit of a buzz term at the moment, content marketing. But B2B marketers have been doing it for decades. If I rewind 8 or 9 years, when I was publisher side, we were creating long form assets for clients, gating them, generating leads. Everyone in this room will know that process. But I think what's really changed in the last 2 or 3 years is it's not just using content marketing for that bottom funnel stuff, it's using it for the mid and the top as well. So how do you position yourself as a leader in a particular space? It's also changed quite a bit in who we're using to help us produce content. So it's not just about creating content internally anymore, it's about using industry bodies, it's about using analysts, it's about using publishers to help us create content, not just long form, but snackable, shareable articles, whatever it may be, to position your client as a leader in that space.
And you were saying, actually, you had an interesting anecdote recently when you were talking about the Microsoft One SMB content that you were creating around how SMBs don't, things like mobility, just because they're buzzwords that we use aren't necessarily words that they use. So do you want to share a bit about that?
Yeah, exactly. So mobility, important topic for technology companies, obviously, but SMBs don't necessarily care about mobility. They care about the fact that they need to do their work wherever they are. And I think certain technology companies, and I think we're all not guilty of this, but everyone has to have their own voice on a particular technology or a certain thing, and everyone speaks that in that, sing from the same choir sheet. But what using third parties does is it allows you to create content in their voice. So and they can really change the steer in terms of how they're talking about that content and the angle that they're taking.
One thing we've seen a lot of brands doing, a lot of technology brands, there's no shortage of content. They've built this great content, they've spent a lot of money developing, a lot of resources behind it, but a lot of the time no one's discovering that content or seeing that content, and that's across the board, that's not just technology companies. What kind of things are you guys doing to make sure that audience is, that content is being seen?
So that's really important because content, it takes time and it costs money. So you need to have a certain amount of distribution. So make great content and then distribute it. So we do that with several different partners. LinkedIn being one of them. We do a little bit with Facebook for SMBs. We use Twitter. We use Outbrain to syndicate our content. We use content-led ad units to really showcase the content that our clients have, wherever they may be on the internet. Importantly, I think it's more about putting the content where they are, as opposed to trying to drive people back to the site to see content. So it's really about, not being disruptive and putting the content where they are, instead of just trying to drive them through banners.
We sort of say fish where the fish are.
Exactly.
And Pete, I think Kelly and Matt stole a bit of my thunder here, but talking around how important employees are. So Matt talked about the LinkedIn content marketing score and how employee activation is a big part of that. What things are IBM doing in particular around making sure that not only do IBMers encouraged to do that, but actually helping them get that right content out?
Well, I mean, there's a realization that social media is a very important platform for our subject matter experts to be engaged with. I mean, we're talking about that, the customer journey from awareness, consideration, purchase, retention, and I think the really important one that loops this back again is the advocacy. And social media, we know, plays a huge part in terms of the consideration phase, but also plays a huge part in the advocacy stage. And once you've got the advocacy, that feeds back into your awareness again. So what we're doing is, we're actively encouraging and driving, subject matter experts, to follow in with content, producing their content. And, just like the discussion was earlier on, this is a recognised and understood priority for us in terms of getting those subject matter experts engaged with the market and being able to sort of educate, which is that keyword I picked up earlier on.
Awesome. Yeah, we find that at LinkedIn, especially, marketing does a great job sort of spoon-feeding sales. Sales are well-intentioned to get sort of the content out there, but often don't know what to do. So, making sure that you're getting that right content in front of the salespeople and sort of packaging it up is definitely helpful as well. Matt, you've worked across a number of brands, especially in the tech space. With regard to content marketing, we've obviously got a lot of tech marketers here and agencies. What would be some of the concerns and sort of things that they should look out for when they're thinking about content marketing?
So I think in Australia, it's quite unique in a way because we, as technology marketers, it's not necessarily a lack of content, especially for global organizations. There's plenty of it. It's a lack of local content. So creating Australian content for Australian people, what's different about our environment and how we are socially, that's going to change that content really. So that's the number one thing. I think choose a good agency and don't let your agency, sometimes open it up between the publisher and your clients as well. We do that. We take away a lot of the small stuff, but we also open up that conversation so that can keep going. And so I think the one thing on those slides that really hit, it all hit home, but the one thing that really hit home was the gating of the assets. So don't gate the wrong assets, and this still continues to happen. People gating everything. They're gating infographics, they're gating snackable top tips, they're gating things because they have a lack of that other content. Just be careful in what you gate. Only gate your premium stuff and lead them down that journey so that they keep coming back, so that when they do get there, they will give you their information. They'll give you the right information. Yeah.
One thing you were saying as well, Matt, is I think you hit something really important there is local content.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that we focus on and we know is that Australia and New Zealand, in terms of maturity, I'm talking from IDC measured this in terms of cloud maturity, for instance. And Australia and New Zealand are uniquely ahead of the rest of Asia Pacific, in the geographic footprint we're in. And it is arguably very different to, the just a little bit more matured North American market. But with that in mind, this is a unique market. We are arguably in a vanguard position when it comes to technology adoption and this whole consumption shift. Yep. And I think exactly what you're saying, I think there is a thirst out there for local knowledge because we can't reuse knowledge necessarily from other markets.
No.
that local content is very important, I agree.
Yeah.